Pure climbers actually really like to have those bursts, those moments where they go really hard. And if you want to get over those bumps well, they're big enough that you have to hit them hard. You have to maintain them, that momentum and push over them. So Chris hits them and goes, all right, varying my pace. I get to go hard. This is fantastic. I hit them and go, wait a minute, what happened to my steady time trialing? And that's where he goes like this and I go like that.
Hey, it's Bruce from the Pros Closet. Now 2020 has been a pretty strange year. A lot of races and events have been postponed or canceled, and it's left riders like myself who really thrive on training for a big event with less motivation to get out and train. I've been sitting on the couch a lot, which isn't great, so I decided I needed to set a goal. So I'm doing what I'm calling a 4-week PR challenge. I've picked a Strava segment, this dirt climb behind me, that's gonna be pretty hard for me, and I have a decent time on it for me, and I'm gonna have to train pretty hard to beat my PR. Now I set my PR on this segment about 2 years ago. I was a lot skinnier and definitely a better climber then, so I'm gonna have to be smart, use some tactics and everything. Luckily, I have help. I've enlisted my coworker Spencer to come join me in this challenge. He's picked his own Strava segment that he's gonna try and PR. We're gonna keep each other accountable over the next 4 weeks, make sure we're riding, make sure we're training, and on the day of, we're gonna make sure we go as hard as possible, just like we would in an actual race. We also sat down with Chris Case and Trevor Connor of Fast Labs in Boulder, Colorado. These guys are performance experts. They host a great podcast called Fast Talk. They gave us some strategy and tactics that we can use on our segments, and then some coaching tips and a basic training plan that we can use to sharpen up our legs and give us the best shot possible against our old selves. Follow along. Hopefully this inspires you to try your own little PR challenge. Trying to break Strava PRs is a great and safe way to compete and then become a better rider. In this first video, we sit down with Trevor and Chris and we talk about why we chose our segments and what we need to do to get ready. So let's dive in.
The segment that I chose to go for my PR is Chapman. It is a dirt climb that comes out of Boulder and it goes up and meets this really well-known climb in Boulder called Flagstaff. I chose Chapman because when I bought my first gravel bike in 2017, that was the first sort of gravel segment I ever did. And I've done it a lot of times, mostly with guys from the shop. I haven't made an attempt on Chapman since probably 2018 was the last time I tried. So it has been a couple years. I'm a little bit heavier. I don't have as much riding volume, but I think I got a pretty good shot because it averages about 7%. It's got some twisties, and I don't think I've ever paced it perfectly.
I think the gradient on that climb is also pretty moderate. You don't necessarily have to be a pure climber to do well on that climb.
It is a fairly consistent grade. It's dirt, but it's pretty hard packed dirt. But about halfway up the dirt part, you start hitting these pretty big bumps. And there's a whole bunch of them. And every time Chris and I have gone at one another up Chapman, on the first half, which is steady, not too steep, which is really, that's the type of climb I'm designed for, Chris and I hold pretty even. As soon as we hit those bumps, he puts a lot of time into them. I hit them, you have to go hard over them. They slow me down. I'm not good at pushing over. Chris is a more pure climber. Pure climbers actually really like to have those bursts, those moments where they go really hard. And if you want to get over those bumps well, they're big enough that you have to hit them hard. You have to maintain that momentum and push over them.
Yeah, I mean, I essentially use them as a little ramp. I surge up the steep side and then sort of try to carry my momentum down the backside. And it's a little thing, but after you do it on 10 of these lumps, yeah, like Trevor said, it's a psychological thing, but it's also plays to my physiological advantages, I guess you could say.
And like technically speaking to those water bars, which is what they are, they're big water bars, they're also like challenging traction wise. So if you get out of the saddle and really try to smash it on those, I've always found you lose a little traction. So that's like kind of a nuance to that section where, you know, if you're really at your threshold and you start to have that traction issue and that type of thing, it can also derail your speed.
Yeah, so I definitely feel like I'm a lot like you. I like keeping a steady pace.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still haven't figured out how I would best race Chapman, except to pick a different climb and not race Chapman.
I think my segment I'm gonna go after for my PR challenge will be it's this climb called Sunshine, which I'm sure you guys know, but for people who aren't familiar, it's a pretty steady and long climb that goes immediately out of town. It's pretty long. It's 5.7 miles. It climbs, I think, about 2,000 feet. I've been riding a lot, but I'm not on form for like a high intensity effort. But I think that Sunshine's doable. Looking back at my times, the best time I set on it was actually back in 2017. I hopped along for a couple stages of the Haute Route Rockies, that like Gran Fondo that they did. That was like a sort of amateur Gran Fondo stage race type thing. And the first one goes right up Sunshine. So that was my best time on it. But last year, late June, almost exactly a year ago, in fact, I was only 18 seconds off of that best time. So pretty close, like close enough for me to think that it's possible with the right kind of pacing and everything. And like I'm saying, it's not an entirely sustained climb. There's a few rollers and descents in some parts where I'm hopeful I can use a little of my sort of know-how to, build momentum over the crests of some of these sections and carry it and ride a little to my strengths, which are not so much as a pure climber, but more, I guess I kind of, maybe we're all sort of like this, except for you, Chris. We're all kind of more time trial style riders. I don't know. The punchy stuff, I used to be able to do that. I don't think I can as much anymore.
Relatively speaking, it's a pretty inconsistent climb. You've got a consistent section at the bottom. Then you've got a short but essentially flat section leading into a very steep section. And I think that fools a lot of people. They overpace that flat section and then they hit poor man wall or just the wall. They dig themselves into a hole.
Once you get to the top of that and you hit the descent, I actually think from there to the finish, there isn't that much elevation gain. It's up and down, it's rollers. You have several just nasty kickers. But then, as you said, what can be more important is how you come over the top, because then you get a slight downhill. If you kill yourself on that kicker and you don't speed up over the top, you're actually going to lose more time. So you need to pace yourself and then push over the top there.
I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make on a climb with inconsistencies like this is to go really hard on the really hard parts, which can be wrong and can backfire. You want to go hard on the really hard parts, but you want to save something so that when you crest or when you're approaching that last 3/4 of a mile, you've actually can carry a lot of speed and then it kicks up again. And if you've wasted yourself and you can't hit that final kicker or crest the wall and use that momentum and carry your speed, then you're actually going to waste tons of time or lose tons of time. Whereas if you just save a little bit, if you dial it back just a little bit and then hit those two sections hard when it's actually arguably easier, that's maybe counterintuitive, but a far better pacing strategy for a climb like Sunshine. Can I ask, Bruce, what your goal time is?
So my PR is pretty mediocre. It's 23 minutes, 15 seconds. I would love to hit 20 minutes. And 3 minutes seems like a lot.
That is a significant chunk of time, yes.
That is a lot, but it's not undoable. When I have athletes go and do a weekly time trial, you usually see around the third or fourth effort, they will take significant time out. And that's pure learning effect. They just get the feel for that time trial. They get the feel for the pacing. And I've seen them take a time trial that long, a minute and a half out. So,
in your case, you said you've mostly done this or always done this in a group too. So your pacing has somewhat dictated to you by the group dynamic. Hopefully you get to do it several times by yourself and really experiment with what pacing for you. So that could also take significant time off. Spencer, tell us about, you've generally told us your fitness is decent, I think.
Yeah, mostly done just base type riding for months and months.
What's your target? What's your PR?
Oh man, I think if I could just do it faster than my PR from 2017, that would be fine by me. That time was 29 minutes and 23 seconds. Right. Anything under that would be a success. I would say something close to 29 minutes. So if you're out there for a while, it's definitely longer than Chapman.
So I'm just guessing here. And again, normally if I was working with an athlete on this, if we wanted to really optimize everything, we would want 4 weeks or 4 months to develop to this. Yeah. I'd want to do some testing on the athlete. I'd want to get a good sense of where they're at, what their strengths and weaknesses are. So everything I'm saying is with a bit of a grain of salt of I have limited information. We have 4 weeks to work on this.
Right.
So some of the assumptions I'm going to make here is you probably have a decent aerobic engine, both from the work you've been describing and just because I know you and I know you generally have a good aerobic engine. So unless you did something odd this year, it's probably still there. My guess is where you're probably struggling the most is you don't have the intensity in the legs. And also bear in mind, when we're talking about time trialing, and while these are climbs, I still think of this as time trialing because it's a race against the clock by yourself. When we talk about going really hard, it's a relative thing. I've made this mistake where I haven't qualified that. I've worked with relatively new athletes who are just doing their first time trials, and I go, okay, there's a little climb in here. Hit that climb hard. Come over the top hard. And let's say their threshold power is 270 watts. They hit that climb and they're doing 550.
Hey, that's hard.
And they blow up. So, I mean, if your threshold is 270, when we're talking about hitting it hard, we're talking 300, 310. It's time trialing is gradations. It's grays, and it's going a little bit harder. It's not, oh, look, there's a little kicker. They told me to take that harder. I'm going to sprint that. You never want to be going that hard.
I think another interesting point that you can clarify is how the best time trialists don't really rely so much on power in this setting. They have this innate sense of themselves.
Power is it's quite variable. So if you go out for a ride and you're looking at power in real time, so it's not a 3-second or a 10-second average, it's all over the map. And where I see a lot of people get themselves in trouble in time trials is they will look down. You only catch your wattage for a moment. And you might catch at the moment where it's reading 250, but a moment later it might be reading 310. So you're going to see the 250 and go, oh, I'm going not hard enough, and pick the pace up. When actually you might have been more towards that 310 and just looked at that one moment when you were going a little bit easier. So you have to be really careful about using power for pacing. I have a screen on my Garmin that I use for time trialing, and I only look at a 30-second averaging for my power. Just to give me a general sense of where I'm at. I don't really want to see my real-time power at all.
One thing I was considering was just removing my head unit altogether and just like going, not blind, but like, not letting that get in my head when I'm doing the attempt.
I did some interviews with some top time trialists. So, for example, Swain Tuft, who's gotten second at the World Championships, he said he just looks at cadence. He uses an old-fashioned cat eye that just has cadence.
Cat eye. Nice.
I have talked to several very high-level time trialists that actually say they get away from data. They really try to time trial by feel.
Interesting.
And that's what you're going to see the best time trialists do, because they know the sensations. They know how it should feel. They know when they hit that little climb, just how much harder they can go, but how it should feel. And I think if you're going to do your best time trial, you can use the metrics, look at them a little bit, definitely watch heart rate, but get the feel.
Yeah, it takes time.
Practice
to
it.
get there.
So I think both of you should go and do some good hard efforts up at these climbs. Experiment. You brought up Strava. Strava is great where you can compare your different efforts. One time go out and on Chapman, try smashing that first half and then survive the second half. Another time, try go easier on the first half, smash it when you hit those bumps, and then compare them on Strava and see which was faster. Also look at your metrics. You might go, hey, they were the same time, but I averaged 5 beats per minute harder or higher with one of these efforts. So obviously it was a bigger strain on my body. This is the sort of information that can be really valuable for when you finally make your effort.
All right, so Spencer and I have a lot of work to do. We got to ride our segments, figure out how to pace them, where to go hard, where to go easy. In the next video, we're going to get our basic training plans from Fast Labs, and we're going to see what happens when we really apply ourselves over the next 4 weeks. If you have any questions about training, about PRs, let us know in the comments. We'd be interested to hear. Otherwise, we will see you next time.